If you've been scrolling through endless lists of 12-inch subwoofers, comparing RMS ratings, voice coil counts, and box recommendations, and you're still left wondering which one will actually fit in your daily driver without turning your trunk into a sauna, this review is meant to cut through the noise. I've spent the last few weeks listening to a handful of subwoofers in different setups, reading the forums where owners dissect everything from enclosure size to amp matching, and then I finally got my hands on the Sundown Audio ZV6 12D2. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of car you need to have for this sub. The ZV612 is a 12-inch, dual 2-ohm DVC design that pushes a massive 500 watt peak output. In theory that sounds like a monster, but the real story starts with the enclosure. Sundown advertises an install-friendly 8-layer box that is meant for small ported volumes, think a 0.5 cubic foot sealed or a modestly tuned port. If you're driving a compact sedan with a trunk that can only accommodate a box about the size of a cooler, you'll be able to mount this sub without sacrificing cargo space. If you own a full-size SUV or a dedicated sound system van, you could go a step larger and still stay within the design envelope. The key is that the sub doesn't demand a massive custom box, it's engineered to deliver punch in a relatively modest volume. Who should actually consider buying this? If you're an enthusiast who wants floor-shaking bass for hip-hop, EDM, or modern rock, and you already have or plan to pair the sub with a 300-watt RMS amp that can drive a 2-ohm load, the ZV612 is a solid match. The dual-voice coil layout gives you flexibility. You can wire it for a 1-ohm load to squeeze more power out of a single-channel amp, or keep it in a 2-ohm stereo configuration for a cleaner, more balanced soundstage. It also shines for people who like to keep the system simple. Sundown includes mounting brackets and a wiring harness that make the install a weekend project rather than a full-blown custom shop job. On the flip side, if you're looking for a sub that will sit quietly under the seat and only occasionally be felt, or if you're on a tight budget and plan to pair a 150-watt amp with a 12-inch driver, you'll likely be disappointed. The ZV612's 8-layer voice coil can handle high current, but it also draws a lot of power when you actually ask for deep, sustained bass. In a small hatchback with a low-capacity battery, you might notice voltage sag if you push the amp hard, which translates into distortion or the amp shutting down. In short, this isn't a set-it-and-forget-it sub for low-energy systems. It's built for people who expect to feed it real power. Let's break down the practical strengths you'll notice after the first couple of songs. The first thing is the speed of response. With a 35mm max, the cone can move quickly enough to keep the low end tight, so you don't get that sloppy, boomy feeling that some larger cone subs produce. When you blast a bass-heavy track like Uptown Funk or a modern trap beat, the sub reproduces the sub-bass notes with a clear, punchy thump that you can actually feel through the seat. Because the driver is built around a robust motor and an 8-layer coil, it stays cool even during extended play, something I observed during a 3-hour road trip mix where the temperature gauge never climbed beyond the safe range. This translates into consistent output without the thermal shutdown you sometimes hear about with cheaper units. The hidden trade-off shows up when you start experimenting with box tuning. The ported design recommended by Sundown is meant to boost the low-frequency response around 4050 Hz, but if you overport or use a box that's too large, you'll start losing the tightness that makes the sub feel controlled. In my own testing, a box that was just 10% larger than the spec turned the bass into a rumble that smeared across the highway. That's not a flaw in the sub itself. It's a reminder that the enclosure design is a critical part of the equation. The included mounting hardware makes it easy to try a few different box sizes, but you'll need a basic understanding of port tuning or a good guide to get it right. Now let's address the value proposition. The headline spec of 500 watt peak can feel intimidating, but the actual RMS rating of 250 watts is what matters for sustained performance. Compared to other 12-inch subs in the same price range, the ZV612 offers a higher RMS rating and a more flexible dual-voice coil setup. Most competing models either lock you into a single-ohm configuration or force you into a sealed box that limits low-frequency extension. Sundown's decision to ship the sub with a pre-drilled enclosure kit means you save on the cost of buying a separate box or having a fabricator cut the panels. If you add up the price of a comparable sub, a custom box, and